And last but certainly not least, I want to introduce a friend, brilliant brain, someone, a rare find in the sea of people in this world. And I want to say thank you to Megan McDonough, who not only is the Pennsylvania Director of Food and Water Watch, but she also lives in Ground Zero and is fighting her own personal family fight to try to protect themselves from the harms of this industry. So thank you, Megan, for joining us. And I also want to mention that Representative Rabb is also the other elected official here, and say thank you very much for having the courage to show up. Megan.
All right. Wow. My name is Megan McDonough, and I am the Pennsylvania Director for Food and Water Watch. Today I stand here not just as a concerned citizen, but as a mother who is filled with rage and sorrow for the countless families. I will do that. I will do that. All right. I got you now. Sorry for the countless families torn apart by the insidious practice of fracking and the reckless disposal of fracking waste that Mr. Noble has been brave enough to call out. For far too long, we have been fed lies and empty promises by those who profit from our suffering. The fracking industry, built on a foundation of greed and deception, has wreaked havoc on our communities, leaving behind a trail of destruction that cannot be ignored. Pennsylvanians were promised prosperity and economic growth, but what we got instead was a landscape scarred by drilling rigs and poisoned waterways. We were told that fracking would bring jobs and opportunity, but what we got instead was broken promises and shattered dreams. As a mother, it fills me with rage to see the health and safety of our children sacrificed at the altar of corporate greed. We were assured that fracking was safe, that it posed no threat to our families, but the truth is far more sinister than that. Our own state health department released study results citing that children living near fracking sites are at an increased risk of rare childhood cancers. And those of us living in these communities have been watching children falling ill with a multitude of health impacts for years now. Their young bodies ravaged by toxins that never should have been unleashed upon them in the first place. My own being one of them. And what about the workers like Sean? Risking their lives day in and day out to line the pockets of their corporate masters. They are treated as expendable, disposable, their safety and well-being of little concern to those who profit from their labor. They are forgotten casualties of this endless pursuit of profit, their sacrifices swept under the rug in the name of so-called economic growth. Before coming here today, I had prepared remarks just to educate folks in this room about the health impacts that we've seen in our communities. Everything from rare illnesses that were discussed in the grand jury report that have yet to be addressed, by the way, to the alarming increase in childhood cancer rates in Southwest Pennsylvania that has now been dubbed the Southwest Pennsylvania Childhood Cancer Crisis. Allow me to say it again, childhood cancer crisis. This is not new information. This is not breaking news. We know these things, and we have known them for years. But yet we still sit here in this building today while our lawmakers have decided to put forward a bill today that will fast-track even more of this. Politicians that, as no surprise, enjoy campaign contributions from this industry and turn a blind eye to the devastation left in its wake, no matter the cost to those of us not in a seat of power. And make no mistake that this is no coincidence. There is no question that they are afraid of the truth being told here today and are desperate to hold on to their profits. So how? How did we get here? Let me tell you. This happened because for far too long, the voices of those impacted by this industry have been silenced by greed, by corruption, and most of all by indifference. But I refuse to stand idly by while our communities are ravaged by illness and environmental destruction. I refuse to accept that our children must pay the price for the greed of a few. It is time for us to rise up, to raise our voices in anger and defiance, and to demand justice for all who have been harmed by the horrors of fracking. And I thank Senator Muth for being courageous enough to use her position of power to call this what it is. Sadly, I have been in this building more times than I should to say the same things over and over again. It is more clear to me today than it ever has been that we cannot rely on the politicians who have been bought and paid for by the industry to protect us. We cannot trust the corporate interests who see us as nothing more than collateral damage in their quest for profit. We must take matters into our own hands, and we must hold those responsible accountable for their crimes against us all. So I urge anyone here from the press to join us in this fight. I urge you to envision the stories waiting to be told, the stories of families torn apart by illness, of communities poisoned, and of workers risking their lives, all in the name of profit. These are not just tales of tragedy. They are urgent calls to action that demand our attention and our advocacy. Use the power of your pens, your cameras, and your voices to shine a light on the truth that threatens our communities. Expose the truth, demand change, and do not back down to opposition. Behind every statistic in Mr. Noble's book lies a human face, a human story, and a human struggle. It is our duty to amplify these voices, to expose the injustices perpetrated by the fracking industry, and to hold those responsible accountable. Each of us here today and watching must use our platforms not only to inform, but to inspire action, to galvanize our communities, our lawmakers, and our grassroots leaders to stand up and say enough is enough, to take back our communities and understand that if the people in this building will not do it, we will do it ourselves. And to the politicians in this building who were too cowardly to join us today, what you built was powerful for a while, but a house of cards is a house of cards nonetheless, and I cannot wait to have a front row seat to watch it fall. Thank you.